I've got some things going around that will be easier to see off of a piece of paper than the slide I have up. But the reason I'm here is over the last 3 years, we've been working with data management, basically spinning off of the NSF data management plan requirements and all, you know the chain of events, the NIH requirements for publishing and things that led up to that. But really, that's why we're here today, probably, and why I got into this about 3 years ago. I look at, as you heard, my background is in preservation, so I look at data management services as preservation sort of applied to campus research data, and that's my story. Let's see. Looking at the current state, and you're not supposed to be able to read this, this isn't a handout. What I did here, and I would urge you, actually, this is the each of the directorates. This is only NSF, but look at all of the directorates, and then this guy on the right is a superset combination of each type of question that's asked. You may hear about the 5 or the 6 NSF questions. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And this is color coding. So as an exercise, you might try, if you're any bit of you as a subject cataloger, you might try trying to sort the questions in some fashion like this to say, oh, here's the yellow is roles and responsibilities, biology has it last, and it's all over the map. Which reminds me of, I saw a tweet, a programmer tweeted the other day, question, so which language is most common among data scientists? I'll give you a hint, it starts with a P. Anybody have any ideas? Pascal, no. Python, no. Perl, no. The answer is profanity, so this is one reason why. So this is how we feel. If we're as librarians called to come approach that big mess you just saw on the last slide, we feel like the guinea pigs. This is some kind of a meta conspiracy project from NSF to make us all kind of figure out what in the world is going on with data management. Well, it is confusing, and the way to deal with confusion is to try to come up with models. And so here's my model of the way we try to answer questions. Either we take the librarian stance on the positive side and try to be so helpful that one size fits all, and we're going to find one solution that's going to work for you, and that's going to solve your problem. Or maybe we take the sort of, I consider this the lawyer approach, when, on the negative side. Sorry, apologies to any lawyers. The lawyers love to say it depends, right? And they get more billable hours out of it. Well, somewhere in the middle is some happy medium of utility. So the thing about models is, as they say, the famous statistician from University of Wisconsin, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And so I think it's helpful to pull in the models that we can to try to solve these problems. This is the best model we have of the data life cycle as in a comprehensive way, and I consider the actual steps that we take, the active steps that we take, to be the definition of sort of data management. So if you look at we always, in our data management workshops, we kind of look at it as sort of this top half, or at least from 12 down to 3 o'clock in clock terms, as the active phase of a project. And that has special storage needs and workspace needs that perhaps repositories, which is what happens after you ingest, that's kind of a different scenario. So we look at it as sort of active on top and static on bottom. Now, if you were to take this model and sort of turn it on its axis 90 degrees and make a treadmill out of it, okay, we're going to walk this treadmill, and we're going to see what the PI sees, starting at creating. Well, a grant project starts with an idea, right, at lower left. And they write the idea down in a proposal. Hopefully they get the money, and then they do the research, bubbling up there, all the flasks. And finally they publish their article, and then maybe they make their data available. That's a pie chart with, yay, the data's available. That's a celebration of releasing the data there. And then at some point, roughly in there, the grant cycle ends. The money ends, and they have what in our university's data ownership policy, which is pending. It comes from our health sciences library and is going to be accepted pretty soon, we hope. You know how bureaucracies go, to be on as an institution-wide policy. But it says that the data need to be kept for 3 years from financial closeout, project closeout, you know, all the paperwork that gets filed to say, yes, we're done. So 3 years. And you heard Julia talk earlier about 10 years, and that's a number that Cliff Lynch has thrown out there. Really, I mean, if you go back to look at appraisal, thinking that appraisal may not happen until roughly 10 years, between 3 and 10 years, something like that. So that's the walking through it. And what turned out in teaching these workshops once a year over the last 3 years, Carolyn Mills has been great with our surveys, that is to say, our evaluations of the workshops that we gave. And it became clear that what people needed after, this is like after the first round of evaluations, was they didn't really realize where all their workspaces were and what resources were available. So this is UConn specific. I haven't made this a handout because it's not really of use to you. It's, I mean, you can access it on our data management pages, but it's, you know, giving them some sense, giving the people in the class, which includes, we've given it for faculty and we've given it for grad students mostly. But this is sort of the UConn drive space, and then there are deprecated things that we would talk about, but as you'll see in a moment, there may be a good reasons for having this on the list. Either a departmental server, because, you know, some departments are developed in their IT support beyond what maybe other places, other departments might have. And then finally we say, okay, if you need to use optical media or some external storage device, this might be what you would do, but we, you know, don't do that. You know, please don't try not to do that. And then we address cloud resources. And that's the first part of what it became clear that we needed was an index, an inventory, a list, a catalog of where they could go for active. This is the active phase now. And then it became clear that this was still, I mean, this is not much better than the color-coded thing I had on my first slide, right? So what we need to do is help people sort through where they are with their stuff. As you saw on the, maybe you didn't see it because it's so small, but the largest that people can do on a UConn-wide resource is 30 gigs, and that's with Google Drive through the Gmail contract, the Google contract that we have. So now we also have the free Google contract for Google Drive there, and we since the contract covers security and you know, other student privacy issues, we separate them out, and they're not supposed to, for example, mine the university Google stuff space. So anyway, that's the difference in the first decision box here is that, you know, are you more than 30? Because 30 is kind of our max with the Google Drive. And then that says, well, we got to use some solution of our own devices there. And then we think about, you know, legal restrictions, because sharing is an issue. If it is covered by some contract or other legal restriction, they would need to use space that's contractually covered by UConn IT policy. And then finally, networking is, do you need to share it? And that, you heard overtones of this with Julia's talk. So that's sort of walking through that tree, and that's active space. Now, We also walk them through if they were to archive, and that's what the second flow chart is about, is static data decisions. We first urge them to do metadata, get your ducks in a row with your descriptive metadata, and then think about some other decisions there. I won't take up too much of your time with the ins and outs of all of these. But note that I don't always say you have to use the library's repository. I appreciated Carly's blog recently. She did IR blog and DR blog, blog posts. And I don't want to steal her thunder. She may tell you about it in a few minutes or this afternoon. But she says use both. So if you think down the road, when we've got these appraisal activities going on, both in a disciplinary repository and an IR, if the researcher has it in both, 10 years down the road, a repository may say, let's say the discipline repository says, this isn't really important to the field anymore. We're going to deaccession it, and hopefully they'll communicate. And I think this is what the ARL share stuff is a little bit about, having some inventory to be able to communicate about this. So the DR says, we're going to deaccession this, and the IR says, whoa, that's as close as we got to a Nobel Prize. Or maybe this was our basketball championship professor. No, I don't know. But there might be a reason that the institution would want to retain it versus the DR, or vice versa. The IR says, we don't really need this stuff anymore. The institution says that. And the discipline says, hey, wait a minute. In our appraisal, we found this to be really crucial. We need to keep it. So that's just a picture, walking around that circle from project to when the actual appraisal happens after ingest. So let me tell you talking about what goes where when. Julie also mentioned that a professor said something about, I'll just create a website about it. They're going to want to do that. A lot of them are going to want to do that to you. If you're doing one-on-one consultations with your PIs, they're going to say, I'll just create a website. That's their first instinct, right? That's just so easy these days. But fresh evidence from an NSF review panel at a large public university in New England that may or may not have some ties to basketball. We had a PI who had written in the DMP without our input. This is after the fact. We're saying, it got to me the other day with just the reviewers' comments, because of the reviewers' comments. But this person had written, it will be kept on the PI's data cluster for 10 years beyond the life of the project. The long-term preservation of visual objects is the PI's responsibility. And the reviewer said, no. You have to work with the university to establish long-term preservation practices. And then, of course, the access for the research community was something that the reviewer questioned and all that. So we're starting to see these first swallows of compliance drift across here. So what goes where when? Well, don't say you're going to put it as an archival solution on the professor's website. That's starting to be very dangerous thing to say. The professor thinks that this sunk his proposal, but the head of OSP is not so sure that's true. So just to say this isn't proof positive that you have to do it this way. Any reviewer can tilt things one way or another, but that's something that is going to, we think, be a stick that will drive people to our door anyway. And in the near future, what are we working on? Well, as you can see, I like decision trees. Beats saying it depends, and it beats saying there's one size that fits all. So we've got internal workflows that we've got to work with we work the data management folks work directly with faculty, and then the IR folks who are building our Fedora repository, where the handoff takes place is something we're working on. I see a crying need for our people embargo way too much. Like the PhDs and stuff, they like to put. We let them put 10 years embargo if they want. That's just really, I think, harmful to the researcher's career. But when and where it might be appropriate to embargo and for what period, and CC, Creative Commons licensing levels, I think we need some decisions on that. You've had the non-commercial, there's been criticism of the non-commercial. If you've listened to some of the traffic on Creative Commons, people talking, is like, well, so what if somebody publishes a monograph that they make money off of? You're still getting your stuff out there. So they're disagreeing. There's some hashing out of licensing levels that would be useful, I think, for faculty. Again, it's just a model. It's not perfect. It's going to be wrong, but it's going to have some usefulness, I hope, if we do it right. And then cost modeling is something that I'm personally interested in. I don't see how we're going to make this all work unless there is a direct cost line and more grants to have this stuff happen. OMB Circular A21 is what our OSP folks will point us to and say, this is what the federal government will put up with in terms of what you ask for. And NSF, from the very beginning of this DMP requirement, FAQ question number 5, says you can put the money for long-term storage in there. So don't say it's an unfunded mandate. It's not really. We just have to figure out the cost stuff. There's a lot of infrastructure stuff that goes on, though, between all the pieces of direct costs, indirect costs, F&A, the financial administrative. That's a real, I don't know, there's something really spooky going on in F&A, if the way it works on a lot of campuses, I think, and how that money gets distributed. And so you're messing with people's, chain or lifeline to money, and that's always dangerous and not welcome. So, but I don't see how this is going to work without more work on cost modeling. I'm happy to talk to anybody who is doing direct costing of this sort of thing or interested in that. So that's all I have. Thank you.